ICE's latest stunt changes everything. Trump folks tried to say that these kidnappings were about violent criminals, murderers, rapists, gang leaders, but then they showed up for elementary schools, waiting, watching, and approaching families at drop off. They then said it was about illegals and folks cheating the system, stealing from you and I. Then they raided immigration courts, arresting people who were doing it the correct way. Now they've found those courts altogether with the government shutdown, and they're breaking into homes at night, flying helicopters overhead, battering rams at the door, and pointing guns at 4-year-olds. If you think it stops here, you're not paying attention. The list is getting shorter, and you could be next. What happened this past week in Chicago, when they descended on an apartment building in the middle of the night, this is the end of a pretense. This is the end of ICE acting like a lawful agency. And what we're seeing now is ICE as they've always been, functioning as a weapon. Full-blown military operations, detaining everyone inside, U.S. citizens, children, and more, leaving behind utter destruction. Let's take a look at some of the photos. The photos capture the aftermath of the kidnappings, taken when a tenant returned to find their apartment floor covered in somebody else's clothing and garbage. A small moving crew was on site claiming they'd been hired to clear out the now vacant units following the raid. But they wouldn't say who hired them. Doors throughout the building were boarded up. In one unit, zip ties and bloodstains were visible on the floor near a pair of baby shoes. Flies circled when open refrigerators were left open to rot. Water damage had caused sections of ceilings to collapse. Strollers, air conditioners, and other belongings were abandoned in the hallways, blocking passage in the dim light. In the lobby, the elevators were no longer working, their buttons permanently lit but going nowhere, and there was a strong odor everywhere. This marks the end of ICE even presenting as lawfully abiding. We already know the truth that it was never just about immigration, but by the end of this video, you'll know exactly who they're coming for next. Now, let's take a look at this clip from Christy, Dog Killer Gnome, posted over the weekend on her social channels. It offers chilling clues about what's coming up.
We will go into Chicago, we will go into Portland, and we'll make sure we have the backs of our law enforcement. And that's what the Department of War is providing for us. When we go out and do operations and the local law enforcement are told to stand down, that they can't be there for us, it's extremely dangerous for these ICE officers, for these CBP agents that are out there trying to help go after these dangerous criminals. So we will use President Trump's methods and his abilities to deploy a whole of government approach, which means the Department of War will come in and help provide that security so we can continue to do our work.
Wars against who, Christy Gnome? Against American communities? Against families in apartment buildings sleeping at night? Children? She says gang members are going after kids to justify why ICE needs to go after kids. She's saying it's extremely dangerous for ICE agents, referring to them as the Department of War, and referring to the administration's Department of War this war actually looked like. Last Tuesday morning, 2 a.m., Black Hawk helicopters descend on the 7500 Shore Drive in Chicago. Agents rappel onto rooftops, battering rams, doors kicked in, and families woken up with guns pointed at them. In an interview with CNN Sunday, Illinois Governor J.P. Pritzker cited reports of children who were zip-tied and held, and some of them nearly naked, undressed, and elderly people being thrown into U-Hauls and detained. Got caught up in this precision operations. An Army veteran who's blind, a postal worker who's served 30 years, asylum seekers, families, children. Before we go further, I need you to see what the White House is posting from Portland. The White House posted it. They celebrated it. They made it propaganda as hundreds protested over Trump's decision to deploy the National Guard in Portland. Rioters, that's what we're calling protesters now. People exercising constitutional rights are rioters who need to be shown what happens. And here's what Christy Gnome didn't mention. Department of Homeland Security confirms that 4 American children were taken from their parents during this raid. American children, stolen, given to the state. For one mother at 2 a.m., when agents broke down her door, they didn't just break it down, they tore it off the hinges. They stormed in with guns, pointed at her, her child, and another couple with a baby. When she tried to record, which she has the right to do, an agent slapped the phone from her hand. The Spanish-speaking agents told them to go back to your country. They then went on to make sexual comments about the Venezuelan mother. In front of her son, they then struck one of the men. She begged them to stop. My son was traumatized, she later said. She was released later that day because she's here legally. She has the paperwork and a pending case. But when she was returned, her apartment was boarded up and everything she owned was gone. Her husband was already detained 3 months earlier. Now she's alone with a traumatized 4-year-old and nothing. Another resident said, "It looks like hell. ICE really just a gang. They have no warrants or signed waivers. It's just violent force. When you declare war, you don't need warrants. Families, parents with babies, people trying to survive." So for now, ICE is gone from this apartment, disappeared into unmarked vans. The apartments are left empty, belongings stolen or entirely destroyed. And the American citizens left behind are living in a war zone. Because that's what Kristi Noem promised, a Department of War. And she delivered. But the war isn't staying focused on immigration. And we know it's expanding. If you think that was an isolated incident that the White House posted, I need you to watch this.
Hey, this is the line that they created. Oh, shit.
That is a federal agent using pepper spray at point blank range, spraying it straight into a protester's face. This was just a week ago. These are American citizens protesting ICE facilities, exercising their First Amendment rights. Now, here's where this gets especially dark. Let me show you the timeline. September 22nd, 2025. The White House formally designates Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. They promise to dismantle these networks. 4 days later, on September 26th, the Department of Homeland Security announces arrests of dozens of Antifa-alleged left-wing violent extremists. Their press release, Antifa-aligned domestic terrorists have nowhere to hide. The arrests are everywhere. In Broadville, Illinois, 17 arrested at the ICE facility protests since September 19th. Portland has made multiple arrests throughout the summer, and at the ICE facility in Los Angeles, arrests are happening left and right. They even indicted a member of Congress, Representative McIver, for assaulting ICE officers. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said, "If you lay a hand on our federal law enforcement officers, you will be arrested and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law." We know that that was not what happened. October 2nd, just a day after, Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons warns of Antifa-linked violence and threatens federal deployment without local support. But here's what matters. Antifa is not an organization. We know there's no membership cards, there's no leadership, there's no headquarters. It's simply short for anti-fascist, and it's a decentralized movement. Legal experts say if you can't designate a decentralized movement, then it cannot be listed as a terrorist organization. The ACLU says it's unconstitutional. So why did they do it anyway? Because now they have a label that they can apply to anyone. When you protest ICE, you're Antifa. Organize against deportations, Antifa. Criticize Trump's administration, Antifa. Look at the progression. It started with undocumented immigrants, positioning them as violent criminals, and then it expanded to any immigrant without papers. Then U.S. citizens got swept up, veterans, disabled workers, anyone who is Latino. Then American children are now being taken. Now protesters are being attacked. The Department of Homeland Security press release is explicit about targeting protesters in Broadville, Portland. Los Angeles, too, they're arresting people for obstruction, for assault on federal officers, charges that mean they can just throw something at anyone who's being in the way. They claim that ICE agents face a 1,000% increase in assaults. They blame sanctuary politicians demonizing rhetoric. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson are specifically named in the Department of Homeland Security, comparing ICE to Nazis. Elected officials who speak out are being documented and listed. Meanwhile, mid-September in 2025, just last month, ICE launched a $30 billion recruitment initiative. Thousands of deportation officers they are looking to hire, ad campaigns in sanctuary cities, cities with protest activity. Gregory Bovino posts arrest videos with rap music. We are here in Chicago and we are not going anywhere. He's posting this after conservative activist Charlie Kirk's assassination in September. They started threatening legal action against news outlets and against journalists. Kristi Noem is calling it all the Department of War. They're building something here. The Chicago raid and the kidnapping wasn't about gang members. 300 agents in that city currently. They're using Black Hawk helicopters without any warrants, and they're taking American citizens and detaining them. They're taking children. They're destroying buildings, and nobody is stopping them. They got away with it. Now in Portland, federal agents are attacking protesters in Broadville, and at least 17 have been arrested. In Los Angeles, I have personally witnessed countless unwarranted arrests during what they tried to spin as riots, when in actuality, it was peaceful gatherings of hurt people wanting peace and wanting an end to the violent kidnappings and imprisonment of their neighbors. Everything they tested in Chicago, the midnight raids, the helicopters, the broken doors, the zip ties, the unmarked vans, they're already using that on protesters. So who's next? Look at the Department of Homeland Security and look at what they're already doing. They've designated an entire political label as terrorism. They're arresting people at protests. They're building lists of elected officials who criticize them. They're recruiting thousands of new agents. They've threatened journalists, and they've proven that they will kick down doors at 2 a.m. with helicopters and face zero consequences. Someone who organized a protest outside of an ICE facility, somebody who donated to a bail fund, somebody who was at the wrong protest, they will call them Antifa. They'll call them terrorists. They'll say it was all about public safety, just like in Chicago. It wasn't about gang members. Here's what we know for certain. They came for immigrants, they came for kids, then veterans, and protesters. The Department of Homeland Security has officially designated opposing them as terrorism. If you oppose this administration, you are a part of a terrorist organization in their eyes. They've published arrest lists. They've named elected officials, including governors. They are recruiting an army. They've begun testing these tactics. We saw images of children's shoes just a moment ago next to blood and zip ties in Chicago. They prove they can destroy an entire building and detain American citizens, take children, and face zero accountability. In Portland, Broadville, and Los Angeles, they're already doing this to protesters, and they have been for a while. The Fourth Amendment protections are against unreasonable search, they're gone. If you're labeled a terrorist, Fifth Amendment, due process, gone. First Amendment, right to protest, they're calling it terrorism now. Dan Jones was right when he said ICE is really just a gang, except this gang has Black Hawk helicopters, billions in funding, and the White House. So who will they be coming for next? Activists, likely? Anyone who opposes Trump? Could they be pulling up to our beds at 2 a.m. just like they did to those families in Chicago? To Roderick Johnson, that blind Army veteran? We've already seen Department of Homeland Security begin detaining activists and creators at the airport this summer. Their designation is now official. They begun detaining people for speaking out months ago. The arrests have been kicked up a whole bunch of notches. The machinery is built. The precedent is set. It's a matter of time now. All they need is an address and somebody saying, they won't come for you or I, so we need to resist while we still can. And listen, to close this one out, there is something unspeakably cruel about what's happening in Chicago with these ICE raids, with families being torn apart in the middle of the night and children pulled from their homes as if the people they love are nothing. These are babies, these are teenagers. These kids will carry this terror in their bones. The clang of boots on the stairs, the violence of being hauled away from everything that felt safe, that particular horror of watching your parents while you're dragged out too, this is trauma that compounds day after day. And watching it unfold leaves so many of us feeling paralyzed. But paralysis is a luxury we cannot afford. So here's what we can do starting now. You can share this video. You can share this with anyone who needs to understand what is going on. Let these images and stories travel where they cannot be ignored. Call your people. Organize. Talk to your neighbors. Call your elected officials. Tell them what you saw. Demand answers. Demand accountability. Talk to the people in your life who may not fully understand the extent of what's going on. Explain and refuse to let this become background noise. Hold tightly to one truth. If these children can survive this trauma, and many will carry these wounds into adulthood, their survival will give them clarity and a fury shaped by what they have endured. They will know what needs to be torn down and rebuilt. And when they're ready to organize and fight, I cannot wait to stand beside them. Not because we're waiting for them or it's their responsibility to save us, but because we owe them action now. And to any child who somehow reads this or watches this, we see you. What's happening is not okay, and it will never be okay. Some of us, not enough yet, but some of us are here. We are so sorry we didn't protect you better. We will try harder. We will speak louder. We will act. There's something unspeakably cruel happening, and we are not done putting in the work. So if you appreciated this video or expanded your perspective, please give us a like. Please share this video and follow me across social platforms. I am Lauren P, and we'll be back with more.